I didn't say.
You've always done awkward so well. Are there any questions? Or
We just want to stand up here for a little
I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but
Natalia.
Natalia. I had a question about your description of a person in captivity. I mean, how did you know like so much about what happens when a person is held captive? I was just curious.
Yeah, no, so I did a lot of research. I read several memoirs, several interviews, different contexts, you know, like someone who was held, kidnapped for ransom, you know, there's just so many different ways, or maybe someone, or I've read accounts of, let's say, women who were kidnapped and held, like, in a basement somewhere for years. And I also, some of that was also partly my grandfather, when he would speak about his time. He was held for 60 days, and so everyone, like, he didn't talk about it a lot, but when I was younger, I think maybe there's 3 or 4 times that I remember him discussing it. So, and I never actually interviewed him about it, but I didn't get a chance to do that before he passed, but I did also talk to my family a lot about what it was like, because my father was the one who was negotiating the kidnapping and talking to the kidnappers. And so, yeah.
Is that very common in Peru for people to get kidnapped?
At the time it was. I mean, it's not anymore, but in the 80s and the 90s, like Peru was going through what they call now the internal conflict, but it was just such a heightened time of violence and terror, and that was when the Shining Path and Mirta were also these 2 insurgent groups that were really imposing a lot of violence on the city, and because of that, it became like this trickle effect where other, like, just even common criminals were organizing, and kidnapping kind of became like a very common organized crime. So.
Oh, sorry. Oh, you go ahead. You're up front.
So, like this, I don't know who this is for in particular, but like when you think of the characters in the books that you've written, are these people that you've known for a while before you wrote the book, or did they just kind of come into being as the book came into being? Does that make sense?
you can take that.
Oh.
I'll take that.
No, I'll take it. I tend to write very close to my own experiences, and for me, I have to get the character further and further away from who I am, so that I can get any objectivity on them. And what's been useful is actually studying persona poems, and like looking through the world through a particular lens has helped me get a more refined hold on who Zane is as a character. Sometimes I wish I had actual glasses I could put on and be like, this is how she sees things. But also I think what's so cool about fiction is your characters get to do things that you would normally do, and that's one thing that's interesting for readers is the more extreme. I mean, I think being kidnapped is pretty extreme, but like, you know, throwing a quiche out. No one would ever do that in a relationship. So that's totally right.
No
So
one I
that's
would be friends with.
Yeah, I mean, who would ever
Just
make a
saying
really
that.
bad crust like that?
Loser. A loser.
Yeah. So what's your answer?
My answer is that I write, usually the people I know, I usually write the people I know and change their actions, but then change them to things that they would do. And actually I leave their names in until the very final draft. But they're not necessarily people who, like this, the ex-wife in this novel is not quite like my ex-wife. The sister in the novel is like, actually my sister's childhood best friend, Cami DiVittorio, who's really obnoxious because I wanted her story. This book has some chapters from other people. Flynn's sister, ex-wife, kids, his kids wrote a chapter. And so sometimes I'll borrow other people and just speak in their voice. Because Cami DiVittorio, my sister's a really nice person. Cami DiVittorio is obnoxious, and she has a great voice. Everybody knows when Cami's in the room. So I wanted her to narrate a story. So, but then I changed the names. I was like, it's fiction. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I have a similar experience. I mean, I definitely like will take characteristics from people in my life and use that as a jumping off point. But yeah, it's funny because I was really nervous about my mom reading Chasing the Sun because I was afraid she would think that she was Natalia. And I'm like, yeah, but I gave her these things, but then I totally like scrambled it. And then, but also there's other times when they definitely don't come to me like before the book has happened. I think the writing is part of like this poking and prodding at them because I like to think of them as like, I've often described my characters as like this really shy person sitting in a couch just being like, go away, I don't want to see you. And I have to just be like, come on, talk to me. I promise I'll be nice. You know, you can trust me. I'm gonna just write down all your secrets and tell the world about them. But yeah, it's not easy for me, and I definitely discover them through the writing.
Cool. Thank you.
I have one for Charlotte. It seems like I have a memory of you being frustrated about trying to write funny or having a hard time with it or just finding it impossible. Seems like you really got a handle on it.
Awesome, that's nice to hear.
What happened?
Well, I wrote a memoir that allowed me to exorcise the serious. I think that's a big, I needed to get a certain story out. And then I just got to do this writing residency at Ragdale, and I was there, and I was thinking about it, and I mean, one of the things that my dad said to me, and you've heard the story, is like, they didn't teach you shit in college. And I'm like, that's a great first line. And it's funny. And so I think that has helped me shape it more. But I mean, I've written like 50 new pages, and then I had 150 pages that of the old stuff that I've revised, but it was so self-serious that it was pretty easy to make it funny. It was too melodramatic. I think it's what wasn't working, and so to kind of flip it a little bit and push it in that other kind of more absurd way has helped a lot. And I also like thinking about contrasts. That Amelia, she's not here right now, but she was talking about being, guys help me, baptized in a river in Nambia. And she's like, it's just this amazing moment. And she's wearing a, what was
Dukes
it?
of Hazzard.
Dukes of
Dukes of Hazzard sweatshirt. And she's being baptized by her father, a preacher, in a river in Nambia. And then what's the other thing? She can't bite anymore.
Baptized Christians can't bite.
She's a 6-year-old that can't bite anymore after she gets baptized. And you let those two things, like kind of the very serious and the profane, like sacred and profane, sit next to each other. And so that's a note that I have to myself: sacred and profane, right next to each other. So hopefully, I mean, I think the book is right now very inconsistent in whether the jokes work or not, but I mean, I've been having a great time. I think I'm hilarious. I'm texting Drew, I'm the funniest person I know! And then I'm like, or I'm crazy, like I don't know. So we'll see. Thank you, Mary. That's great. Also, I like to yell, apparently.
That was good.
That's okay.
Okay.
What writers would you say inspired your work?
Okay, seriously, Deborah. Like
Definitely.
honestly, I read. No, really. When I started writing late. Sorry, just had to jump in because she's here. I started writing late in life, and I was already reading short story writers I really admired, and Deborah was one of them. And she just gets the shorts. I mean, she's also wrote a beautiful memoir a couple years ago now, right? Deborah, talking to you. 2 years ago.
Pardon?
Your memoir.
What? There's two of them. There's one
Anyway.
last year and about 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yes.
But just
Yeah.
killer short story writer, and I'm sure she's influenced my writing. Same with Ron Carlson. Did you say recommend or
I don't know.
influence?
Influence.
The answer is too long.
Influence, she said.
Yes.
Not recommend.
That's right.
I teach 19th century literature, so like Melville, like I'm unconsciously influenced by Hawthorne and all the people I teach. Dickinson. Like Hawthorne, Melville, Dickinson, Whitman, Thoreau, you know, it can't help but seep into stuff like that, even though I'm a contemporary writer. Yeah, how about you guys?
Oh gosh, that's such a hard question. Because it's always changing. But it's like, okay, so what will pop into my head right in this moment? I've met Cristina Garcia like 3 times, and each time I've been a complete mess in front of her. And it's because her work is so like, it captivated me from the first time I read it. And I took a workshop with her, I think, when I was like 21. And that was the coolest I ever was. And then ever since, I actually ran into her after my book came out, and I just became this puddle of fangirl. But yeah, and I'm taking a workshop with her later this summer, and I'm freaking out about it. She's great. She is wonderful. Let's see. Early on, I absorbed and like read everything Roald Dahl, and I always say that's what taught me to write, because he has this one chapter in Matilda where the characters have to write limericks, and I thought, I want to write limericks, and that was the first thing I ever wrote. And I feel like, well, it's so hard to, I am a huge fan of Anne Patchett too, so pretty much anything she writes, her sentences are just, you want to hug them, and then you want to throw them across the room, because you wish you could write that way. So.
I would say, like, as I'm trying to think funny, Miranda July, her book, The Last Bad Man, I'm listening to it on audiobook, and she's crazy, and she's willing to go places in her storytelling that are super uncomfortable, and so she's been giving me a lot of permission. And then Sherman Alexie, because he does so good at that kind of funny, resilient, break your heart. Funny, resilient, break your heart. He does it again and again. If you could, the Austin Public Library has him reading The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian, and he's a fantastic reader. So I've been trying to read people who can help me take myself less serious. So, and I've been reading a lot of poetry too, because the precision of a good poem, I think, has a lot to teach a prose writer. And those funny poems.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have one. So if the characters that y'all write are oftentimes based on people you know, do you find it difficult to work up the courage to publish something about, how does that work in terms of relationships, sustaining relationships?
So.
Do you ever feel guilty?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yes, the answer is yes, and you have to push through that to publish anything, if you're writing like that. But sometimes they don't recognize themselves, or sometimes they're very proud of being the jerk depicted in the book. So I published a story, one of my first stories, and I showed my dad. I never showed him anything I'd written. And then I left the room. I gave him the magazine and left the room. And when I came back later, I was just terrified about what he'd think. And he said, he goes, "Oh, that was too sad." He was like, across the room, there were 4 other people that were like, "That was so sad. Don't write that kind of sad. It's too sad. No one's going to read it." I'm like, okay. And I said, "What'd you think of the father in that story?" Because in this story, the father, word for word, said what my dad said to me when I was 13. Like word for, as far as my memory goes, like exactly what he said to me. It was really mean, but very dad-like, and it was like destroyed the 13-year-old kid in the story. And I said, "What'd you think of the dad?" And he's like, "Oh, that guy's an asshole." Where'd you come up with that one? I'm like, really? He's like, "Yeah, really. It's just a jerk." I'm like, wow. Yeah. So sometimes they don't get it. They don't know they're in your story even when they are. And sometimes they'll think it's you, but it's like your mother saying, "Is that me? Is that me?"
Or they'll I found the same thing, like they either don't recognize themselves, or they think they're in someone who you're like, "No, that's not you."
That's not you. Yeah.
Not at all. And so it's really interesting, because it really is more telling of how people see themselves than anything having to do with your writing. So I've kind of tried to let that go. And then if you're, for example, my sister, she started taking pictures on her phone as she was reading my book, and she would text them to me and be like, "That's from our childhood." And she just got a kick out of it. For her, it was just a scavenger hunt. So,
I remember that.
yeah.
Cool. It's harder in memoir though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just naming names.
Well, you're naming names. It helps when some of the people around about are dead. And that seems pretty flip, but it's also freeing. My mom hates my fiction, and she reread this book when it was republished, and she's like, I totally know that character's not me because she's barefoot and I hate keep reading that way. And then I have people in my hometown who come like, if you wrote about me, I'm gonna kick your ass. And then they come like, you didn't write about me. And so like they want and they don't want. And with my mom, with the memoir, it's gonna be really hard, really hard. But some of you guys heard it's the last chapter is her graduating from high school at the age of 56. And so I'm like, just read this part. You've already lived this other part, just, you know. But I've also tried to be just a better person in my connection with her. So we're gonna go on a trip with her this summer to Alaska. And I think before I was like, I'll just write about that lady. Well, I should spend time with that lady. And so trying to be a better daughter, for me, makes me feel like I get a little more permission to write about her. But I think they all think, oh, Charlotte's just so negative. They've kind of put me in a box. And one of my sisters, she's like, oh, I know you're just talking to me so you have something to write about. You know? So.
That's really beautiful.
What'd you say? Say that a little louder.
I mean, I'm trying to spend more time with her.
But I think it's beautiful because it reminds me of like what we talk even in fiction, like that we should have compassion for our characters. Like even if they're not great or wonderful or perfect, there should be, we still must care for them at some level, or at least care enough about them to be telling their stories. And that, like, how else would you be able to tell it from a place of honesty if you don't know them? So I don't know, there's something really kind of fun about you.
I'm trying to be
wanting
a better
to-
person. Well, and I think part of memoir is owning your mistakes. And it's not interesting to read a book where you're just going, look what that person did to me, look what that person did. Like you have to think about your own choices that you make and the implications of it. And I've been a jerk to my mom, and I'm trying to be less of a jerk on the page and in real life. And I mean, she's a person of faith, and so I've mocked that faith a lot, and I don't think that that's kind. So I'm trying to grow into respect for that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Cookies.
Yeah, I'm going quickly.
Thank you so much for
Okay.
your snacks. Your
Okay.
books are on this table. I'm sure they'd be happy to sign them for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thanks for coming, you guys.